Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Melissa Andre. I'm the Executive Director of the Philadelphia Tax Review Board. Today is Thursday, February 22nd, and we are 2024, and we are convening a session of the Tax Review Board. The category is license and inspections. Please be aware that this is a public hearing and it is being recorded. Because the meeting is public, participants and viewers have no expectation of privacy. And by continuing to be in this meeting, you are consenting to being recorded. Please also note this recording will be put on the Tax Review Board's website. With me today is our chair, Paula Weiss, as well as board members John O'Connor, he's physically here with me, and Ryan Boyer. At this time, I'm going to give control to Paula Weiss. Paula.
Okay, good afternoon, everyone. Tax Review Board for February 22nd, 2024 is now in session. Our first order of business is going to be a reading of the decision in the case of LT Woods, last four digits of the docket 9304. Following the hearing in this case, the board did review all the evidence on presented by both parties, and our decision is as follows, and pardon me while I read this. The Tax Review Board reaffirms its decision of September 15th, 2022 in respect to the reduction of the principal by $20,000, noting that this should result in a corresponding reduction in the administrative charge as well. The board now further abates the interest by 100% as it finds that the petitioner has shown good faith and no negligence in pursuing this claim. The Tax Review Board notes that it was constrained by the city's lack of documentation regarding an itemization of the work the city's contractor did in order for the city to justify the total assessed principal cost of the demolition. However, the city's presentation regarding the master demolition contractor program and its administration justified the remaining amount and explained why a premium was charged to the city for this work and then passed along to the petitioner. Specifically, the cost to the contractor to meet the requirements to participate in the master demolition program and to be on call to appear for emergency situations, as was done in this particular case. Further, the city did proceed with the lowest responsive bid, which is its only responsibility with regard to pricing under its own rules and regulations. The board again found that the petitioner's expert opinion partially persuasive regarding the reasonableness of the charges. However, his opinion and report were lacking in that they did not take the factors as noted above and by the city into account while crafting an estimate of the costs. A contractor participating in the city's master demolition program and through it awarded a bid has significant bonding and insurance costs, safety and prevailing wage requirements, and hiring requirements, constraints, and costs that a contractor operating in the private sector is not bound to follow. In addition, an owner in this circumstance cannot expect the city to have the responsibility to go out and look for the cheapest option in the way that they might do themselves, particularly when in an emergency situation, as was the case here. So I want to get concurrence by my fellow board members on the record for that decision, and I concur in that decision as read.
Ryan Boyer, I concur.
John O'Connor, I concur.
Thank you. Mr. Canuso, you will receive a letter from the Tax Review Board with that decision in about 2 weeks, as will Mr. Rullo. Both sides have the right to appeal to the Court of Common Pleas within 30 days of that letter, should they so desire. That will also be spelled out in our decision letter. And that concludes the matter for this board at this time.
Thank you, board members. I believe Mr. Canuso, you're muted.
So you're muted.
Madam Chairman, if I may, this was remanded by the Court of Common Pleas. I would respectfully request that a copy of your decision be sent to Judge Coyle, who is holding this under advisement pending receipt of your decision.
I thought she issued her decision to remand, and that was conclusive.
Yes. It was a direct request for us to remand it. So
Okay, very good.
Okay, but you will get a letter with all of that information.
Thank you.
I will make sure that the full decision as read by the chair is included in the decision letter that the board sends.
Thank you.
That helps. Okay.
Thank you. I think that concludes the matter for LT Woods for today. And we will move on to the rest of our docket. So, Mr. Canuso, thank you.
I would like to be excused.
Absolutely. Thank you very
Thank
much
you.
for
Have a
appearing.
good day.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Andre. Thank you, board members.
Derulo. All right, so we're going to move on to the next case. I guess we'll start with RSTNJ LLC. Last four digits of the docket, 9213. Mr. Johnson, you were going to give us some information on that?
Yes, I've been in contact with attorney Don Tancredi, who represents the petitioner RSTNJ LLC. We have an agreement that would reduce the total balance that they were going to pay in a payment arrangement that we've reduced to writing. And if it pleases the board, I would like to ask for a little bit of time for that to be executed and for us to forward it to the board.
Oh, 60 days?
Even like 10 days would be fine.
Let's do 30. That's better
Okay,
for us.
all right.
So what we would ask then is, once that's concluded, please notify our office, notify Ms. Andre, so that we can get this off our docket and not reschedule it, since it's going to be marked in a continued status.
Okay, yes,
Can
I will.
Thank you. Concurrence from the board members for continuing this case?
John O'Connor, I concur.
Ryan Boyer, I concur.
All Weiss, I concur. Right, so that concludes RSTNJ LLC. Moving along, we're going to move to Curtis Simmons, who I believe is present in the office. Yes?
Yes, if everybody can just give me a second, I'm gonna run over to the other one.
All right, so we're going to just wait a minute for him to be escorted into the hearing room.
All right,
Thank you.
again, I'm very, very sorry. This is
It's
not how we
okay.
usually do things. Have a seat. It's clear, we can hear you.
It's good.
And if at any point this is not okay, let me know.
It's
okay?
good. It's good.
Paula, they're in the room.
Hello, Mrs. Denenberg. How are you today?
Good day. How are you?
Good, thank you. All right, so you can hear us, we can see and hear you. I think we're good. All right, so we're gonna now call the case involving Curtis R. Simmons for the property 1004 South 20th Street. There are two dockets for this case. First one ending in 8963, second one ending in 8962. Mr. Denenberg, we're gonna turn to the city first for the numbers that are in contention and dates and times, I guess, and then we'll come back to you for your case. So,
Thank you.
oh, you're welcome. Mr. Johnson, this is your case?
Yes, it's Christopher Johnson for the city of Philadelphia. And
Okay.
I'm gonna call Lashika Mitchell to read the numbers for those two cases into the record.
Okay, Ms.
Okay.
Mitchell,
Yes,
before we
ma'am.
start, could you please state your name and position with the city for the record?
Sure. My name is Lashika Mitchell. I am a code administrator for license and inspection.
Ms. Mitchell, do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give in these matters will be the truth?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. Okay, so if you could give us the amounts due and the bill information?
Okay. 1004 South 20th Street, docket number ending in 8963. This is a CSU case. The bill date is 11/21/2019. Bill number 2691000. Principal amount $32,122 even. The admin cost $6,745.62.
I'm
And
sorry,
the-
could you put that again?
So $6,745.62. The interest is $6,607.22 for a total of $45,474.84. The second entry for 1004 South 20th Street, docket number ending in 8962. This is also a CSU case. Bill date 11/21/2019. Bill number -2901000. The principal amount is $20,000 even. Admin charge $4,200 even. Interest $4,114 for a total of $28,314 even.
You labeled this as a CSU case?
Yes,
Could-
yes, it is.
What that stands for?
Construction Services Unit. This is for a demo.
Okay.
Okay.
And just for clarification, could you tell us, Ms. Mitchell,
Sure.
the first set of numbers you read was for a demolition? Is it true that the second set, the total being $28,314 as it currently stands, the second one was for a site improvement, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Thank you. All right, Mr. Johnson, did you have any opening comments?
Yeah, first opening, I would like to say that the city is going to stipulate and has agreed that the full balance of that site improvement, $28,134, I believe, the balance is going to be rescinded from the record from 1004 South 20th Street. I believe we can confirm, and I can confirm through testimony, that that bill should not have been sent to the owner of 1004 South 20th Street. So the only remaining bill before the board at this time would be the bill for the demolition on the
That
first
bill is
document.
being withdrawn?
Yes, that bill is being withdrawn
Okay,
for the site improvement.
okay, so we're left only with 8963, and that is the actual demolition itself.
That's correct.
Okay. Did you have any opening
Thank-
comments?
So
Thank you, Mr. Johnson.
you're welcome. As a preliminary matter, I think the testimony in the record will show here that the city did what was required to protect public safety in demolishing this building due to the imminently dangerous conditions thereon. And we issued a bill to the record owner at the time. And the record owner at the time was Delta Property Investments LLC. And that was everything that was required to happen by the city, that was supposed to happen, did happen. And furthermore, we would raise an objection to the board's jurisdiction here due to the untimely appeal. The bill was sent to the record owner of the property back on, I believe it was November 21st, 2019. I don't believe this appeal was filed until, and there's a definitely, we would stipulate a convoluted history to the ownership of the property. But when Mr. Simmons got the title back in his name, he
You freeze?
Mr.
You
Johnson.
froze.
Mr. Johnson, I don't know that he can hear us.
Mr.
He's
Johnson.
frozen.
and sometimes the city would argue that this no jurisdiction over any of these issues.
All right, so you froze about the last minute or so. If you want to just give your final comment again.
Okay, yeah, just it's the jurisdiction is limited by statute to 60 days from the issuance of the bill. And the bill in question here was issued to the record owner at the time, Delta, on November 21st, 2019. This appeal wasn't filed until October of 2023. And for that reason, the city is going to argue that the board has no jurisdiction here.
Got it. Okay, thank you. We're going to turn to Mr. Dennenberg. Do you want to discuss jurisdiction first and then move on?
Sure. So if I could just give you about a 30-second history, because the history is important. In the early 2000s, Mr. Simmons' mom, Sylvia, owned this property. In 2010, Mrs. Simmons deeded the property to Curtis Simmons. Curtis maintained the property until it was stolen by, we're going to call a fraudulent Curtis Simmons, somebody who impersonated him and fraudulently deeded over 1004 South 20th Street in December of 2018. A deed was, but I think the deed is both in Mr. Johnson's package and in my package. Delta Property Investment LLC purchased fraudulently a deed from Mr. Simmons, not the one who's sitting in front of you, but a different Mr. Simmons who put a photograph on a fake driver's license and deeded over the property to Delta. My client found out about this within 3 weeks when he went down to get the tax bill from the MSB building. He immediately filed, and that copy of the dockets, and the dockets are 30 pages long, a fraudulent transfer complaint against Delta Property Investment LLC. Simultaneously with the filing of this fraudulent transfer complaint, a second person, his name was Kevin Steckel, he filed a lis pendens against the property because a fraudulent Curtis Simmons was selling the property to a second person named Steckel and not Delta Property. Steckel was trying to hold up the sale to Delta. My client did everything he can humanly do and even filed in August of 19 when he found out about the demolition, August 30th of 19, he filed an emergency motion to stay the demolition. And the court decided, hey, he's not the owner. He doesn't have standing. The only one who would have standing prior to the demolition was Delta. And Delta was in litigation, and they weren't going to go spend money on stopping the demolition of my correct Curtis Simmons, who's sitting here. The property got demoed in September of 19. My client did everything humanly possible. He wasn't the owner of the property when it got demoed. I think Mr. Johnson would agree with me. Mr. Johnson and the city should go and try and collect a demo lien against Delta Property Investment LLC, or the person who what's the word I'm looking for, impersonated my client who's sitting here today. My client has lost his property. He's got a vacant lot with a demo lien when he wasn't even entitled to it. So that's our position, and I can put him on to, corroborate my testimony.
Okay, so my one question is, when did your Mr. Simmons regain ownership?
Yeah, so there's a second deed which I submitted May 2nd, 2023. After litigating this matter for 3.5 years. And you'll see the dockets are 30 pages long. Not that paper means anything to the panel, but my file's 6 feet high of paper, of litigation, because they believe that the correct Curtis Simmons was impersonating, well, not impersonating, but doing this himself. He's a gentleman from New York who got taken by Mr. Goodman, who is the fraudulent person who concocted this sale of this property. And my
Can I
client
ask a
should be,
question? Can I ask a question, Mr. Denenberg? What did the city say that the property was imminently dangerous prior to all the fraud? That they get a notice of the imminently dangerous notice prior to all the machinations and the history you gave.
so for the first time about 1 o'clock today, and Mr. Johnson and I know each other extremely well, but I just got papers from Mr. Johnson at 1 o'clock today where he indicates that the property was, letters were sent to Mr. Simmons in New York in November and December of 2018. My client had hired in June of 18 a contractor who made the property safe.
And it was inspected as well.
And it was inspected also, and he can testify that in June or July, everything was quiet before the theft.
And I think the records, if I may, not to interrupt, but the records would show that the timeline is slightly off about what Mr. Denenberg is saying. In March of 18, it was designated unsafe. Mr. Simmons obtained a make safe permit and made the property safe, but it was again designated as unsafe in November of that same year. In November and December of 2018 is when the fraud happened. And then the property was upgraded to imminently dangerous in 2019 and subsequently demolished.
It's exactly what happened. And now we're getting punished again because of, we had no standing for 3.5 years until I finally got the property back from Mr. Simmons, the correct Mr. Simmons, and litigated this through COVID and almost to trial. It was going to trial. We finally, convinced Delta to deed over the property to us.
Okay, so our first question was jurisdictional regarding the filing based on the bill date. Here, I don't know if we want to talk about this in a
Now?
separate. Yeah, I think, to go forward, we should make a determination that we want to hear additional testimony or not.
And just for the record, if it pleases the board, I've submitted a copy of the bill as Exhibit C2. I can share it on the screen, or if the board is content with what I've submitted, I don't need to do that.
Well, I don't think that you and Mr. Denenberg are disagreeing on those dates. So
I think the facts, this is largely a legal issue. I have witnesses here. I have Mr. Rabakowski available to testify regarding all of the merits of the history of the property and what happened with the department's demolition, the condition of the property, pictures of the collapse of the interior of the property, the danger to the public, etc. But if the board needs to make a threshold determination regarding the jurisdiction, and here, and I would
you've raised it, Mr. Johnson.
well, and I would say
You.
here when the law talks about fraud or breakdown, we're not talking about just fraud in general. We're talking about fraud or breakdown of the administrative or judicial process.
Yes, we understand that.
Okay.
Okay.
All right.
Okay. So do we want to step aside, or do we want to just, yes, we want, if you're shaking your head, Ms. Andre. All right.
I just think it should be.
We're going to step aside for a moment. Everybody hold tight.
Thank you so much.
Are we on silent?
No,
No,
you are not on
okay.
silent, but the board will not be here. So if you do want to go on silent, if you could just, I think it's a touch screen, you should be able to do that.
Touch screen. Then,
Just touch the screen.
no, I don't think so.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, but now I can.
There's a mute.
Yeah,
Mute.
okay. Thank you. Yes. Nope. Okay.
You have to press it.
Mr. Dennenberg, my board is coming back.
Off, okay, can you hear me?
Now I can. Thank you so much.
Okay.
I'm
If-
just waiting for Paula. There she
If I can make one comment before the board makes a decision? If
Um,
needed.
All right, board members are all back. We are now in session, having discussed the information that we,
Paula, Mr. Dennenberg wanted to say something.
Mr. Denberg?
So when the deed was recorded back from Delta to Mr. Simmons, that deed is dated May 2nd, 2023.
Got it.
Within 30 days of becoming the owner again, after fighting for 3.5 years, he did file a timely petition with this board.
And the
That's-
board is going to hear the case. So we're gonna go for, we did discuss what we had already heard and it made the determination that we are gonna go forward with this. What we'd like to hear, Mr. Dennenberg, is testimony or documentation from you and your client regarding his ownership prior to the fraudulent transfer, I think, the state of the building, his efforts to make safe.
Okay,
We have all that.
yeah, you have to testify. Do
All
you
right.
want to swear him in?
Yes, Mr. Simmons, could you state your name for the record, please?
Curtis R. Simmons,
And spell your last name.
Simmons.
Thank you. Do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give in this matter will be the truth?
I do.
Thank you. Mr. Dennenberg?
Thank you. Mr. Simmons, you have been sworn in. And if anybody cannot hear him, please give us a shout out, I guess.
Oh, we
Thank you.
will.
Who is Sylvia Simmons?
That's my mother.
Did there come a time that Sylvia Simmons deeded over 1004 South 20th Street to Curtis Simmons?
Yes, she did.
And do you remember when that was?
May of 2010.
And from May of 2010 until, let's say, the spring of 2018, what did you do to maintain this property?
One of the things that I had to do, the main thing that I had to do was, there was a violation, a serious violation on the building. The wall the front wall was needed to be stabilized. And I hired a contractor, Michael David, to come and do the construction work on it. Before we did that, I had to hire a structural engineer. I hired a structural engineering firm to actually do the Make Safe plan, which we then presented to the city. The city approved the Make Safe plan, and Mr. David followed the Make Safe plan in order to make the property safe again. Once the property was made safe, the inspector came and signed off on the property, saying that it was in fact safe again. We don't have here, I don't have here, but there were pictures of me actually on the scaffolding of the building when Mr. David was completing the work in 2018, where he was showing me what he had done to make the building, where he had braced up the building, both the walls of the building and in fact the roof of the building, to make sure that the building would be within codes.
Had you ever heard from the city after the work had been done to make the property safe and the city signed off on this building?
Well, after that, no, I didn't hear anything between that time and the time that the property was taken from me in the deed fraud case, which happened just a few months after this.
When you found out, how did you find out that the property was sold by the fraudulent Curtis Simmons to Delta Property Investment LLC?
Okay, I first made.
How'd you find out about it?
Yeah, I'm gonna tell that. In October of 2018, I went to the city. There was a outstanding tax bill, and I went to the law department to actually set up a payment plan for to pay off the outstanding taxes. I paid a portion of it, made a down payment on a portion of it, and made a payment plan for the additional amount that was owed. The first payment was due in December. So I actually on December 31st, the last day of the year, I came into town to actually make a payment of the first payment that was due on the payment plan. And I was told at that time that the taxes had been paid off, fully paid off. There were about $6,000 in taxes. It wasn't a huge amount at that time. Then we looked it up and we found a fake bill of sale that with my name on it, but of course was not my signature. And so at that time I went, they sent me to the district attorney's office, and I filed a complaint in the district attorney's office. And then another lawyer who I had worked with, Deborah Spire, for many years, going back to when my grandfather first died, she kind of walked me through just making sure that we put a hold on the property over at City Hall on December 31st. That's, I think, included in the paperwork, the handwritten paperwork that's included in these documents.
And did you pro se file a fraudulent transfer complaint on December 31st, 2020, 2019?
Let me see what you're talking about.
This is the dockets. Did you pro se file this?
Yeah, on 2018, yes. December
December
yes, I
2018,
pro se.
when you
Yes,
found
that's
out
when
about
As
that.
soon as I found out about it, I acted immediately. Going to the DA's office and then going over to the petitions of the
Pathonetaries filed a complaint.
yeah, I forgot the name of the court name. It's something court. What's the name of that?
Pathonetary. It's a hard word.
Okay,
Yeah.
pathonetary. And then I went through a series of interviews and with both the police department and the DA's office, where the case was being handled in terms of the deed fraud. I did that we did that for over a year, back and forth between me and the DA's office, but they never were able to. I don't think they ever did an arrest of the person who did this.
You ultimately found out that the city of Philadelphia was going to demo 1004 South 20th Street. Is that correct?
I did.
And what did you do when you found out that the city was going to demo a property that was yours, but you no longer had title to?
It was Labor Day weekend of 2019 that somebody actually called me, and I hopped on a bus and came into town on that Friday of I believe either Thursday or Friday of that week. It may have been Thursday.
What did you see down at 1004 South 20th Street?
I didn't go down directly to 1004 South 20th Street. Michael David, who was my contractor and who had been working with me and still went to the property and spoke to the inspectors and told the inspectors that I was at the court trying to stop the process of the demolition.
And did the court allow you to stop? You filed a motion with the
Yeah.
court to stop the demolition. And what
Yes.
happened with that motion?
It was denied.
Was it denied because you weren't the owner of the property?
Yes, I assume that was the reasoning.
And the property was ultimately torn down, is that correct?
Correct.
And there came a time that you hired my law office to assist you because you were doing this pro se.
Exactly. It was very, very difficult process actually finding somebody who would actually help me. Because a lot of times what I found with these kinds of things is that once your property's been taken, people don't, they're not it's a very, very difficult process to actually get the property back. And so I must have gone through a dozen lawyers, before I found somebody who had the expertise and the willingness to actually help me, with this process of actually getting the property back.
On May 2nd, 2023, after fighting for, I think, 3.5 years, did you ultimately get a deed back from Delta Property Investment to yourself?
Yes,
And is this the deed that was uploaded earlier today?
yes,
And did you come down to the Office of Administrative Review to file this petition, which we're here today on?
yes. I first came here and to actually find out what the process was. And even before I got the deed back, I came here to find out what the process was that I needed to take in order to get to get these liens removed. And as soon as as soon as the deed was finalized, we finally got it finalized. And it was not an easy process getting it finalized. I began the process of actually submitting with those two liens removed.
Does the panel have any questions for Mr. Simmons? I don't have any further questions.
Thank you. Mr. Simmons? I do actually. What kind of property was this?
This was a combination residential and commercial property. My grandfather was a mechanic, and he actually had he died in his 90s, and but before he died, he had been a mechanic for the city. He worked on city trucks. So it was a 3-story building, and on the ground floor was his shop, where he actually fixed the trucks for the city. And then the first floor he lived on, and the second floor was a large open loft kind of space.
Okay, and I think you testified that your mother deeded it to you May 2010.
Yes.
Is that correct? And what was it occupied at that point? Or when
No,
did it become vacant?
Well, what happened was my grandfather was actually when he died in 2001. And when he died, these people came along and actually claimed to be relatives of my mother and her half sister. My grandfather didn't die with a will, and we went through protracted litigation over his estate to get these people out of the estate. It wasn't just the house. At the time, he was a very thrifty gentleman, and he had several $100,000 in bank accounts that we had to get these people away from. So we actually went to the orphans court. My mother and I went. I first got involved with things back then. We went to orphans court to actually to get these folks out. I hired another lawyer, Deborah Spire, and she handled that case in orphans court.
So my question though was, at what point did the property become vacant?
2000 to 2001.
Okay, so that was after your grandfather passed away. The
Exactly.
property was vacant while you were involved in all of this
Litigation. Yeah. And at that time, we didn't have title of the property.
Okay,
Um, we first got title of the property. I think my mom got title of the property. That case was settled 2006 or 2007.
okay. And what condition was the property in at that time?
It needed work, and we secured the property at that particular point, so that that it wouldn't be further vandalized. And but my mom, we made the decision to transfer the property from her to me, because my mom was already in her 80s at that particular time, and we knew that it didn't make sense for her to try to really do anything with the property. We wanted to keep it in the family at that particular time.
Thank
Did you
you.
bring with, I'm sorry,
Yep, go ahead.
it's not my turn. I'll wait my turn.
All right, I was gonna ask if, Mr. Boyer, Mr. O'Connor, did you have any questions at the moment?
No, I don't.
Ryan? All right, so let's,
I don't either.
Can I have opportunity to cross-examine the witness?
I was getting right to you,
All right,
Mr. Johnson.
thanks.
All right, so Mr. Dennenberg, if you have basically presented the information you want to provide, I am going to turn it over to Mr. Johnson for cross-examination at the moment.
That's fine, and then I'll recall him to ask him a question. Yeah.
Go ahead.
So, Mr. Simmons, I'm interested in, following up on Chairman Weiss's questions about the use of the property. It was not occupied was your mother living there in 2006 when she got title?
No,
No. Was anyone occupying the property between 2006 and 2010 when you got title?
no,
Was anyone occupying the property between 2010 when you got title of the property and 2018 was it when it was designated as unsafe?
no,
It was empty the whole time.
yes,
There was you didn't rent it to someone or anything like
No.
that. But the
No.
neighboring properties were occupied, right?
yes.
Okay.
Well, to be honest, the property on the right side of the property was not there. That was an empty lot. That
And then there was a new construction that was built there.
yes, exactly.
Now, when that time period between 2010 and 2018, you said in your testimony you wanted to keep it in the family. To you, that was what? Just owning it and leaving it vacant?
Well, I was working to actually bring the property back. I had several meetings with I talked to folks at the West Philadelphia Financial about getting financing during that particular time period. I had an architect actually come up with a plan, an architect and a surveyor working out what kinds of options there were in terms of usage of the plan. And we were working on it actually, up until the time of 2018. I was working on both the feasibility of developing it, but I was also looking at, if I couldn't get it developed, I was also looking at the possibility of selling it.
So did you reside in New York that whole time?
Yes.
When you said keep it in the family, did you have family in Philadelphia at that point in time?
My uncle was still here. My mom's brother was still in Philadelphia. My mother's sister, she passed away. In that Mary Campbell, she passed away in that time period.
How often were you visiting the property?
Frequently. I would say every couple of months, every few months. And sometimes when I would make visits, I would bring people in to, different contractors and such, to, see what we could do in terms of, in different plans that I was doing. And as I said, I also had, meetings with, West Philadelphia Financial with them. I had a couple of meetings with them, and I also met with and had numerous conversations and met with my lawyer at the time.
You're not a contractor, are you?
I don't have a contractor's license. But I've done a lot of projects in New York, but I'm not.
You own properties in New York?
Yeah, I own property in New York, yes.
Was this the only property in Philly that you own?
Yes.
Okay. I have no further question.
Just a couple, if I can follow that up. Mr. Simmons, did you have blueprints drawn up to develop this property?
Yes, I had architectural drawings done. Yes.
And in some time in the fall of 2018, did you have the property under agreement of sale?
Yes. Actually, I had two contracts for the sale of the property.
And were you able to go through with the sale of this property?
No.
Why?
Because the property was stolen in a deed fraud.
And I'm looking at a picture that was on Google Maps in August of 17. It looks like the property was secured with windows on the second floor and the boarded up.
Yes.
Mr. Dennenberg, we can't see that, so, and that, we can't see that.
So was the property secure in 2017?
Yes.
Is there any vagrants in this property?
No, we never had any problems with vagrancies in the property in any other time.
That's all the questions I have.
Okay, we're gonna turn it over to Mr. Johnson for the city's information, please.
Okay, the city is going to call one witness, Thomas Rebkowski.
Hello, Mr. Ribikowski. How are you today?
Good afternoon. How are you?
Good. Could you state your name and position, please, and spell your last name?
Thomas Rybakowski, Rybakowski, City of Philadelphia, License and Inspections. I'm a construction compliance supervisor assigned to CSU or Contractual Services Unit.
Mr. Ribikowski, do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give in this matter will be the truth?
Yes.
Thank you. Mr. Johnson?
Mr. Rebkowski, can you just tell us what your position, your job responsibilities are with the department?
I'm a construction compliance supervisor assigned to Contractual Services Unit or Emergency Response. Prior to that, I was a building inspector and plan review specialist assigned to the same unit. Contractual Services Unit is assigned the duties of inspecting properties throughout the city and declaring those properties as either unsafe or eminently dangerous, and then inspecting the make safe permit or the demolition permit to bring that property into compliance.
And also you're certified as a plans review specialist?
I hold 8 certifications through the ICC, which is the International Code Council, or the Uniform Construction Code, which is the state of Pennsylvania, certifying me as a building inspector and a plan review examiner for the ICC. And then the state recognizes that certification, meaning that I could conduct plan review and inspections in the state. I also hold a building code official certification recognized by the state, basically certifying that I could be a code official for any municipality in the state of Pennsylvania.
Okay. And how many years have you been in your position as a code official?
As a supervisor since June of 2021. Prior to that, I was with the department from 2014, and I've been with the same unit and held the same certifications through 2014, 2015.
Okay. Have you had a chance to review the department's records with regard to 1004 South 20th Street?
Yes,
And you were not an inspector at this property back in 2018, were you?
not that I recall, no.
All right. With the board's permission, I'd like to share my screen at this time.
Sure.
I'm going to show you, Mr. Rabkowski and board, what's been marked as City Exhibit C1. Can you see on the screen what's marked as C1?
Yes,
Okay. Now, before I get to C1, I think I want to clarify one thing in Mr. Simmons' testimony. You've examined the records. Can you tell us, was the property designated as unsafe back in March of 2018?
back in March of 2018, this was a notice of violation indicating that the property at 1004 South 20th Street had been declared as unsafe. The date on this notice is November 7th of 2018.
Right,
It-
but before we get to this notice, you've examined the records, right?
Yes,
Was there a prior notice designated as unsafe?
yes,
It was that in March of 2018.
yes,
And did in fact Mr. Simmons obtain a make safe permit?
yes.
And are you aware from the records what repairs were performed on that permit?
There were repairs done under an issued make safe permit, and that make safe permit was marked closed in our system.
So it according to the system's records, do you know the date when that permit was completed?
I don't recall off the top of my head, no.
Is it fair to say that it was sometime in the summer of 2018?
Yes,
Okay. Now, if we go to page 1 of City Exhibit C1, what is this notice?
this is an initial notice of violation indicating the property at 1004 South 20th Street had been declared as unsafe by the department. The date of the notice is November 7th of 2018, and it is in reference to case number 662818, and it was issued by Inspector Alicio following an inspection that took place on November 8th of 2018 with a re-inspection that's going to be occurring on December 10th of 2018.
Now, was this notice issued to Curtis Simmons?
This notice was issued to
Objection.
Hold on. Objection, Mr. Denenberg?
Here, Mr. Rabakowski did not pen this letter. He would have no firsthand knowledge of whether this letter was ever mailed by the city of Philadelphia. And my client never received this letter,
All right, so noted, but it is a business record. In the city.
which I received 1 hour ago.
Okay,
Okay.
we'll note that. Thank you.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Mr. Johnson.
So did the department issue this notice to Mr. Simmons?
This notice is issued to a Curtis R. Simmons at 3140 96th Street, East Elmhurst, New York, 11369. And it is for the property at 1004 South 20th Street, declaring that property as unsafe.
Are you aware at that time, were these notices mailed automatically by the system, or were they placed in envelopes by hand?
So back when this system or when this document would have been produced in 2018, the batch is produced the following business day, and then it is sent out via first class and certified mailing.
Can you repeat that? I froze for a second.
So in 2018, when this was processed, this would have been processed by first class mailing and certified mailing. And yes, an individual would have done that procedure.
All right. Now, can you take a look at the document that's marked C1 at page 3?
This is a final notice sent on the property
Yeah.
or regarding the property at 1004 South 20th Street, that the property had been declared as unsafe. It is sent to the same owner or the same addressee, a Curtis R. Simmons at 3140 96th Street, East Elmhurst, New York, 11369, referencing the same case number 662818. The date on this notice is December 21st, 2018.
And can you tell us, just for the record, what were the conditions that were designated as unsafe at the property?
The areas of concern were the front wall of the property.
You have to write it down. I can't do it.
That's all right, that's right. I got it in my head.
Hello?
I was about to say the same thing. Can anybody, is Mr. Johnson frozen?
I don't see him any longer.
Yeah, well, you only see him when he talks, but he seems frozen.
Thank you.
No problem. I'm gonna just quickly kick him out of the room and that may be able to prompt him to get back in.
No, I own this property, but I
Mr. Denenberg, I'm just gonna mute you because it sounds like you're talking, so just.
Sorry about that.
No, it's okay. It's just, you know.
You have a phone number for Mr. Johnson? Can you text him and see what
Yeah,
he knows to try to get back in?
well, yeah, okay.
He may not realize or see what we're seeing.
Just getting his voicemail.
But we're gonna take 5 at the moment.
I'm still muted, but I'll go back and mute myself. Thank you.
Think this is tied into the city's issues?
No, because it's just our issues. Like it's literally, there's no power to our network. Nothing else. So that's why I'm a little surprised. And Mr. Ribakowski is fine and he's on the city.
Yeah, you're Miss Mitchell as well.
I'm gonna try calling one more time. Nope. Mr. Johnson said he's gonna come in on his phone. His computer is not working.
Okay. I was gonna ask if you at least heard from him.
Mhm.
So we need to move along here.
We do.
My apologies. I lost connectivity for a moment.
Yes, all right, we see and hear you now.
Okay,
So I think what I would ask is that you kind of speed this up a little. I mean, I think that we understand that the
you
issue,
understand the case, yeah.
yes, and the issue is a legal argument in terms of responsibility, as much as it is the condition of the building and the validity of the demolition.
Okay, so now I would remind the board, I have Mr. Rybakowski under oath. Mr. Denenberg, I have a number of documents that are both in my exhibits and in your exhibits. Would you stipulate to the court filings that I'm showing in my exhibits?
Of course.
Okay, so at page 5 is the Liz pendants that was referenced, filed by Mr. Steckel, and that shows that it was filed on December 21st, 2018. And moving on, I have the deed that was the alleged fraudulent deed from Curtis Simmons to Delta Property Investments. That's at page 8 within the city's documents. And again, that was filed on December 18th, 2018 with the Recorder of Deeds. So that's the next document.
Right.
And now, Mr. Rybakowski.
We lose him?
Yes.
No, he's here.
No, he's here. I see him.
Okay. Mr. Rybakowski, I'm showing the document that's at page 14 and 15 and 17. Have you had a chance to review those records?
Yes.
Can you tell the board what those records are?
Essentially, the first 2 pages, page 15 and page 16, are printouts from a demolition application that was submitted into the department. The application was submitted, if Mr. Johnson would move the document up a little bit. It was processed December 24th of 2018. And then this was for the complete demolition of the structure at the subject address of 1004 South.
And the who was the applicant for this permit?
The applicant is the owner is was recorded or was named Delta Property Investment, and then the applicant was the demolition contractor.
So that would be an Antoine Braff.
He would be the representative for that contractor. Yes, it was Adelphia Demolition.
Adelphia Demolition. All right. And what happened to that permit application? They applied to demolish the property. What happened?
That permit was never issued by the department. There was a request for additional information sent on December 26th of 2018. That information was never processed and never sent back. And subsequently, this permit was expired.
And that was the document that was at 17. Was that request for more information?
Yes.
All right. Now, page 19 of the documents. Can you tell the board what document this is?
This is the property at 1004 South 20th Street was re-inspected. It was re-inspected on or around June 17th of 2019. Property was then upgraded or to continue to degrade to the point where the property was declared as eminently dangerous. This is that notice. The notice was sent to the owner of record that the city had on file, and that was sent to Delta Property Investments at 3671 Stenton Street, Philadelphia, PA 19139 or 19129, and that is in reference to case number 691000. Again, declaring the property as eminently dangerous.
And what were the conditions that were indicated on the imminently dangerous notice?
The conditions are still the front wall. There was conditions of the front wall, and this is also spelling out areas of concern with the roof assemblies of the main structure.
And to your knowledge, was there an indication of a roof and interior collapse of the structure?
Yes.
And I'm gonna move on to page 22. Was that notice mailed by certified mail?
Yes,
And was this the green card that it was signed for?
this is the green card. It does show the same case reference number, which is 6911000, and the date is 6/18/2019.
And that's at page 22 of the documents?
Yes.
Oh shoot. Okay, I'm gonna stop sharing for a moment because my document has.
Yeah, I don't know that anyone is challenging any of this. Mr. Denenberg, you're not challenging all of this, are you? That occurred when your client was not in possession or ownership?
No,
Right, so we can speed this up, Mr. Johnson. I don't know that we need to go through the entire timeline of this period.
Okay, well, I'm just gonna ask for Mr. Rebkowski to testify to the photographs, and I think that will be pretty much the end, just about of his testimony. Mr. Rebkowski, I'm showing now what's C1 at page 23 and 24. Can you tell us what these photographs show?
These photographs show the front of the property. They illustrate the front wall and the vegetation that was growing out of the property at the third floor level, showing the conditions of the property at the time the photograph was taken.
Yeah.
And from our perspective, you can see through the window. There's no roof appears on the structure.
Correct.
And was that a condition that would cause a possible danger to the neighboring structures?
Without the main roof, there is weather penetrating into the structure, which is and potentially affecting the adjoining property.
And is page 25 a close-up showing the lack of a roof on the structure?
Yes.
And we're looking at page 27. You can see inside the window the interior collapse.
You can see in the window with some structural members that are hanging and showing some structural damage somewhere in the interior of the property.
And was the property posted at that time?
When this photograph was taken, you can see what's left of a eminently dangerous posting on the property. I can see in the photograph that is Inspector Carroll's signature on the front on the poster, and that is the same inspector that issued the eminently dangerous violation. His name was on that document.
And this was from page 27. Was that the posting from June of 2019?
Yes.
All right. And these additional photos, they show more views looking up through the front of the structure?
Yes.
And I'm showing what's marked as 29. Can you tell us what you see in that photograph?
You can see that there's damage to the interior assemblies and what would be left of the floor assemblies and the roof, or the absence of, showing that there is structural distress of the structural members.
And is there vegetation growing inside the property is visible in the structure?
Yes.
In this picture?
Yes.
And would that undermine the integrity of the structural elements, have vegetation growing inside of it?
Yes.
One question I had when viewing the condition of the structure, Mr. Rebkowski, this it looks like an iron or a metal strip across the front wall. Would that be an example of a repair that could help shore up the front wall?
So that would be a temporary or a stopgap or something of that nature that was affixed to the front of the property. The department would necessarily ask for it to be recertified or signed off by a design professional for any kind of structural or any kind of apparatus that was affixed to the property.
And in page 30, is that photograph show you any serious defect in the property?
It shows what gives all the indications that a tree has taken root in the front wall or the structural attachment to the front of the property.
Now, could this condition, a property in this condition, could that collapse if the structural elements were to fail?
Yes,
And would that collapse cause a danger to occupants of the neighboring structure?
they would cause a danger to the occupants of the adjoining structures and the general public that was transversing or walking along the sidewalk.
And I'm again on page 31. That's a different view of the interior of the structure. Can you see clear daylight up through the roof of the structure?
Yes.
And on the rear of the structure, as evidenced by page 32, is there also vegetation growing on this other wall of the structure?
Yes.
And I'm now going to ask Mr. Rebkowski, have you had a chance to review page 34?
Yes.
What's that document?
Page 34 is an invoice that was received by the demolition contractor. It was the invoice that was sent to the department following the demolition of the property. The award-winning contractor was Manguel, and they sent an invoice in for the demolition of $32,122.
And what was the date of the invoice?
This invoice is dated September 19th of 2019.
And what is page 35?
Page 35 is a document the department asks when they send in their invoice. It is basically a clean certification by the contractor. Basically, the contractor will send in the documentation saying that they infilled the location with clean backfill.
How about page 36? What's that?
36 is the bid sheet. It's a sign-in bid sheet that is passed out to the contractors at the time of the bid. For this, what I can see right here, there were at least 3 contractors that looked at this property and potentially, or now I'm looking at it further, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 contractors that potentially submitted bids into the department for the demolition of this property.
And what was the date of the bidding?
The date of the bid was August 13th of 2019.
So, and, we had looked at those photographs from June of 2019. Was any effort made to obtain a permit by any owner or responsible party between June of 2019 and when the bids were taken?
Not that I'm aware of.
Now, how about page 37? What's that?
37 is a printout of a document that is by the city's procurement department. It is a notice for the bid for the property.
And how about page 38?
38 is a printout of the demo or of the costs that the department received bids. We received 4 bids for the property of 1004 South 20th Street. They ranged where they were provided by Manguel, Palmer, USA, and A&M for the demolition.
And was the bid received by Manguel the lowest bid?
Yes.
And page 39, what's this document?
39 is a printout of the disposal. It's one of the receipts that they disposed of the debris through a recycling center.
And that was on August 30th, 2019?
Yes, it's commonly known as a dump receipt.
So at this time, I'm going to ask Mr. Denenberg, page 40. This is the TRO that Mr. Simmons had referenced. that was filed in the Curtis Simmons versus Delta Investments case, emergency motion, temporary restraining order, seeking to stay the demolition. I've provided that in, I guess it would be pages 40 through 43, 44.
47,
Okay, through 47, you would stipulate that that's the motion that was filed.
yes.
And he lays out in his own handwriting, his attempts, to take care of the property and prevent the city from knocking it down.
Stipulate.
Mr. Rybakowski, would you say, was the city a party to that case, to your knowledge?
It did not name the city. It was between, if I saw the top page, it was between the two parties, Mr. Simmons and Delta Property Investments.
And this is a ex parte order that was issued as a result of that motion denying the motion for stay. And I believe that was that Judge Patrick, Mr. Denenberg?
Yes.
I have finally, Mr. Rybakowski, pages 48 through 52. Have you had a chance to review those pages?
Yeah.
No, what are those documents?
So this would be a permit application that had been submitted into the department, naming Delta Property Investments for the property, and it has these were sent in through June and in July of 2019, finally with the permit being abandoned in 2019.
Okay. So it is fair to say Delta did apply for a permit, but abandoned the process and never obtained the permit. Is that right?
Correct.
Okay. And page 51, this email, was this sent from the department to someone regarding that application?
The plans examiner would be a Christopher Heartland, and he sent this document to the applicant asking for additional information. There is, due to the nature of the response, they had to respond within 10 business days. Subsequently, that permit application was abandoned.
And I finally, these photographs, 53 and 54, I believe these were taken on the 30th of August when the demolition was scheduled to occur. Is that correct?
Yes, you can see the demolition contractor's dumpster or bin at the front of the property with their name painted on the side of the side of the dumpster.
Now, and I've included at the end for the board's enlightenment, and Mr. Denenberg, you would stipulate pages 55 is the order granting your client title, basically ordering that the fraudulent deed be stricken, and the rest of it is the new deed.
Stipulated to.
And that goes all the way until page 72.
Yep.
So I'm gonna stop sharing now and ask that exhibit C1 and C2 be admitted to the record at this time.
So
And I haven't showed page C2, but I think I'm gonna show page C2, the exhibit C2 at this time. Mr. Rybakowski, could you just tell me and tell the board? Hold on. right, Mr. Rybakowski, what's the document that's marked as C2?
This is an invoice for the abatement that was done for the property at 1004 South 20th Street in reference to the case number 691000. Makes reference of the work that was completed, and it was sent to Delta Property Investments, the same address as the notice of violation, 6371 Stenton Street, Philadelphia, PA 19129, and the description of work is for the demolition.
And what was the date of the bill?
The date of the bill is November 21st of 2019.
And was this demolition performed by the city in order to protect the safety of the public and of the occupants of the neighboring structures?
Yes.
I have nothing further, Your Honor.
Thank you. Mr. Dennenberg, any cross?
A few questions, Mr. Rabakowski. The photographs that Mr. Johnson shared from C24 through C32. Do you know who took those pictures?
I know that some of those photographs were taken by Inspector Carroll. I do not have an actual date stamp on those photographs, but I do know and see that Inspector Carroll was one of the did post the property with a eminently dangerous status on that initial inspection that took place that was noted on the notice of violation.
And if you take a look at the photograph that you were speaking about, which I believe is.
You want me to show it?
No, I think you can stipulate to it, page 27, there's a date on that document of June of 2019.
Is this on and we would stipulate on
the notice.
on
Yeah,
the
I'll have the
notice. I mean, I would offer that those photographs were taken on or about June 13th, 2019.
Okay, and Mr. Rabakowski, my client, Mr. Simmons, was not the owner at that time, was he?
The notice was sent to Delta Properties.
Now, you're familiar with the Office of Property Assessments website, are you not?
Yes.
And that is open to the public for everybody to obtain information on where the owners may be.
It does provide public knowledge information via a website, yes.
And you were not the inspector and I'm trying to get the documents, and I'm looking at C1 at page 3 and C1 at page 1, with letters going to Curtis Simmons at 3140 96th Street in Elmhurst, New York. Do you remember?
No, I was not the inspector of the property at that time.
So as you sit here today, you don't know how the city obtained the address of 3140 96th Street in Elmhurst.
I can say that the department normally draws its records from the Office of Property Assessment, but where that address came from specifically on that date, no.
And if I told you that if you go onto the Office of Property Assessment website today, you will find an address for Mr. Simmons for a vacant property license number 727195, listing an address different than where the city of Philadelphia mailed these violation notices.
So that vacant property license would be recorded with who?
City of Philadelphia Department of License and Inspection.
Then yes, the document would have gone out to that address for the vacant property license. But at the time the notice was sent to that other address.
But I have to call my client, but the address that the city had when it mailed out this letter in November of 18 was 330 East 39th Street, apartment 10, New York, New York. That letter did not go, these two letters of C1 and C3 did not go to Mr. Simmons's vacant property address that he gave to the city of Philadelphia.
No.
That's all the questions I have from this witness.
Mr. Dannenberg, I don't have it in front of me at the moment. What was, or Mr. Bukowski, what was the address that violation notice or those notices were sent to?
I believe it was the Elmhurst address, but if Mr. Johnson would bring the document back up, I can reread the address into the record.
Yeah, hold on.
I can read it in if you would like.
Read it in, yes, so we can speed this up a little.
3140 96th Street, East Elmhurst, New York, 11369-1861.
All right, and I will just note for the record that that is the address that Mr. Simmons put on his tax review board petition for appeal that was filed in our office in October of 2023.
Yeah, but that was not the address in 2018 where he resided.
Okay, thank you. All right, let's move on.
I believe I have a copy of the March 2018 notice of violation. Would the board want to see if that's the same address?
I don't think at this moment that's going to make a difference for us. So why don't we, Mr. Dannenberg, additional questions, or are we about ready to wrap up?
No, I don't have any other questions for Mr. Rabakowski. I would just like to thank him for coming in.
Okay, Mr. Bukowski. All right, can we get very brief closings? Mr. Dannenberg, closing remarks?
Sure. I don't believe that the facts in this matter are really in dispute. The property was vacant. The property was taken from Mr. Simmons unlawfully. Mr. Simmons fought for 3.5 years to get back a property. He had his address listed with the city of Philadelphia under license number 727195 at a different address than where he received the notices from. When the property was demoed, the bills were sent to Delta. My client will tell you he was aware that it was going to be demoed, tried to stop the demolition, but didn't have standing according to Judge Patrick. The bill should remain, the demolition bill should remain with Delta Properties, who is financially able to pay those bills as they are a very big owner of real estate in the city of Philadelphia. Mr. Simmons had no control over the property at 1004 South 20th Street when the demo occurred, nor did he have any power to stop the demolition according to our courts. And by punishing him for a property that got stolen at no fault of his own is just the second punishment that he has gone through with this property. And I would just ask that the city look elsewhere to the people that they build for this demolition. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Dannenberg. Mr. Johnson, very brief.
Mr. Dennenberg claims that the city is trying to punish the petitioner. On the contrary, the city has done him a service by demolishing this unsafe and imminently dangerous property. He would have had to spend his own money to do the work necessary to make that property safe. Now, he was the victim of fraud, but if he was the owner at the time of this demolition, he would have been liable to a passersby, to the neighbors if that had collapsed. And let me remind you, he was the owner of this property for at least 8 years and did nothing with it to make a higher and better use of the property. It remained vacant in that neighborhood. He was, sitting on it. He said he wanted to keep it in the family, but nothing was happening but deterioration of the property. Now, It's sad that he was the victim of the fraud, but the taxpayers of Philadelphia have paid to make that property safe. The law requires that the bill be sent to the owner, and that's exactly what happened at the time. We sent the bill to the record owner, and that a lien be placed on the property. Now, we have graciously agreed to rescind the bill that shouldn't have gone to that property in regard to this, but there's no reason why the city and the taxpayers of the city should be footing the bill for what is a sad situation, but ultimately, Mr. Simmons has benefited from the city taking care of that blighted property. That's it.
Thank you. All right, the board is going to go back for a brief discussion of everything that we have heard, and we will let you know where we stand.
Thank you.
Decision, that's.
Yeah, all the time. Ryan, Paula, okay, Paula, everyone's back.
Right. The board has discussed all the documentation information that we received today, and it is our decision to abate the interest that is accrued against this bill in looking at the photos, looking at the documentation and the timeline, while we understand the fraud that occurred and therefore are taking that into account and looking at the interest. It's also quite clear that the deterioration of this building occurred primarily during the time that petitioner did own this property, and that work obviously did need to be done and required that the city step in at that time. So interest will be abated. You will get a letter from the tax review board within 2 weeks with that information. Either party may appeal to the Court of Common Pleas should you so desire. Should that appeal not take place, then we would ask that within 30 days of the adjusted TRB bill, you contact revenue and enter into a payment agreement for the balance. And that is the decision on this matter.
Ryan Boy, I concur.
John O'Connor, I concur.
Paula Weiss, I concur. Thank you very much for your information and attention to this matter. I think that ends the docket for today. Yes?
Yes.
So we are adjourned. Thank you, everyone, and we'll see you at the next hearing.
Yep.
Thank you.
Mr.
so much.
Rabakowski. Thank
Have
you,
a good one,
board.
everyone.
Thank
Take
you.
Good to
care.
see you guys.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye, Dave.